What up, motherfucks? Hater reboot up in this bitch. So I've gone out for a walk, just like the old times, when I'm walking and talking, walking like I talk it, like Migos once told us, motherfucks. And I'm here with a SummerSlam review. Now, before we get started, I just want to say what a great week this has been in wrestling. You know, whatever your opinions are on CM Punk, mine happen to be that he's an overrated hack, right? The fact is, his comeback is impactful and it is memorable. So, that plus SummerSlam with the return of the champ and a lot of other things that happened at SummerSlam makes this a very noteworthy wrestling week. You know, it almost felt like WWE was counter-programming the reveal of CM Punk, right? It's one of those situations, motherfuckers. It's one of those situations where they're like, all right, AEW did some shit, so we got to do some shit too, you know? I mean, the fact that it's SummerSlam also helps, but it did seem that way, right? It did seem like it's like, all right, both companies kicked it up a notch. You know, again, this doesn't mean that next week is going to be good. Next week is going to be like fucking Brian Pillman versus like Joey Janela probably, and like Lashley versus Veer from Veer and Shanky. But who knows? The point I'm trying to make is that shit went well this week, and this is what competition will do. So, without further ado, let's get to the card, motherfucks, because this was a good card. This was, I will just say it straight up, one of my favorite pay-per-views in a long, long time. This was a great pay-per-view, motherfucks. You know, I mean, there were some things that were good, some things that were bad, of course, but generally speaking, this was like one of the first pay-per-views in a long time. I'm talking about several years, probably since I started this channel, that actually felt like a pay-per-view, where you actually saw things that you don't see on Raw, you know? So let's get started. First up, we have Big E versus Baron Corbin in the dark match, right? Now, I'm thinking, personally, that there's going to be some payoff in this. I don't know what's going to happen yet, but I'm going to say it here, motherfuckers. I'm going to say it first. Baron Corbin is my early pick to win the Royal Rumble. I see this going this way, motherfuckers. Someone interferes in his life, and he gets his shit together, becomes a face, and it becomes a face that gets over, because people are eventually going to like sympathize with a guy that's down on his luck, and he could win the Rumble. The reason why I pick him is because if it's not him, I don't see anyone on the main roster who is primed for a push. Like, obviously, it could be like Edge again, no doubt, right? It could be a returning superstar again. It could be Cena. That's another one that I would want personally, right? But I'm going to say Baron Corbin for now because he's the only guy in the roster that seems to be primed for something. Everyone else is kind of stuck in the mud, you know? I don't see anybody else getting ready for a push. And if they do get a push, it's going to be like a Lashley push that happens like after the fact, right? So, I don't know. We'll see. Anything's possible. I mean, Damien Priest could win it for all I know. But I have a feeling it's going to be Baron Corbin. So, if that happens, you fucking heard it here first, motherfucks. I know everyone's probably thinking like, what the hell, that's never going to happen. And you're probably right. I'm not saying that's likely. But that's my pick. You know, it's my dark horse, motherfuckers. So anyways, the match was whatever. Big E wins with a big ending. Baron Corbin's looking more and more like shit every week, which is great. Like he has the cul-de-sac haircut. Like he's letting himself go. You know, this has like renewal written all over it, you know? And honestly, this is much more entertaining than King Corbin, which was one of the worst kings of all time. Let's not forget, Baron Corbin is a legit tough guy, and the company has been behind him in the past for, you know, for serious shit. Baron Corbin's always been presented as like a future champ. After all, he was Kurt Angle's last match, so I mean, you know, expect some shit. Then it was RK Bro versus AJ and Omos in one of the worst matches of the card, in my opinion. Not because the people involved aren't good, because a lot of people involved are great, but just because it highlighted a constant problem in WWE that we've talked about on this channel before, but since it's the reboot, I'm going to have to do another video on it, because things change, motherfuckers. The meaninglessness of title runs. Like, does it matter at all to anyone that Omos and AJ were tag team champions? It means nothing, motherfuckers. It means nothing. Who are the last tag team champions that mattered? You know? I can't think of anything. I really can't. I don't know. The answer to that question is, I don't fucking know, motherfuckers. I don't know. New Day on their, like, second reign? Usos on their first, like, reign as bad guys? Who, motherfuckers? Who has been a memorable tag team champion? Absolutely no one. It doesn't matter if Street Profits, I've said this before, but it doesn't matter if Street Profits beat New Day or vice versa. Just like it doesn't matter if Omos and AJ beat Rated RKO or whatever, RK Bro, you know? That's the problem that I have with this. So the match itself was fine. It felt like a Raw match. It wasn't anything special, but it was what it was. Next up, we had Alexa Bliss versus Ava Marie with Dewdrop. Alexa Bliss wins. I forget how, to be honest. Oh, she hits a DDT. This match was like a 0 out of 5. This was a horrible match. The whole point of the match was Dewdrop has finally turned on Ava Marie. It was uneventful, it was uninspired, and it felt like they just debuted last week. So I don't really care that Dewdrop turned her back on Ava Marie. It's not like Dewdrop is this person that was bullied for like 7 months straight and finally broke free. She was bullied for 2 weeks, and now she turned her back. Big fucking deal, motherfucks. You know? And plus, I'm not compelled by Dewdrop or Ava Marie, to be honest. And sure as shit, I don't like Alexa Bliss at all with this whole doll gimmick, you know? Whatever, motherfucks. Next up, we had Damien Priest versus Sheamus. The match was a solid match, everything considered. But once again, the problem was the same thing with the RK Bro match, right? Who was the last meaningful United States champion? I have the answer for this one. It's either John Cena or Rusev. You have to go back that far to find a meaningful United States champion. You can make a small case for Apollo Crews because it actually helped elevate him. But that's it, motherfucks. Everyone else is completely irrelevant. Sheamus having like a 3-4 month title reign is immaterial. Nobody cares. If the champion was still Matt Riddle, nobody would care. Right? I know some people are thinking, well, Lashley had a meaningful reign. Not really. Lashley, his US title reign was irrelevant. What mattered was that he was winning every match. You know, he didn't need the US title to become the Lashley that he is today. But anyways, it is what it is. The match was good. The finish was fun. Damien takes off Sheamus' mask and takes advantage of that like mini distraction. Hits the reckoning, 1, 2, 3, beat it, motherfucks. Next, we have the Usos versus Rey and Dominic. The Usos, I hate them so much. I do not like the Usos. I've made a video, I haven't released it yet. I made a video about the top 10 tag teams, and I'll spoil it for you guys. The Usos are probably not going to be on that list. I say probably to keep some suspense. The Usos have 2 moves, the super kick and the splash. So basically this match was them doing those 2 moves until eventually they do a double super kick and a splash. Right? Every Usos match has always been the same. They're fucking overrated as shit. You know, the only cool thing is I think it's Jay. Jay has a mullet, and mullets are cool, motherfucks. Next up, we had obviously one of the biggest moments of the night. For some reason, I lost track of why, but Sasha Banks is not going to be able to wrestle Bianca Belair. They're presenting this as if it's like some dream match. You know, so all that happened was Sasha Banks came back and once again turned heel. Like, I don't know what it is about Sasha Banks. Every time she comes back under the pretense that she's good, you know, and then she betrays the person that same day. And every time people are shocked, they're like, wow, Sasha's shocking betrayal. What do you mean shocking betrayal? They had a feud at WrestleMania. Like, why are they friends all of a sudden, you know? Like, if you're going to be friends all of a sudden, if both people are going to be faces, you have to explain why. Like when Kurt Angle lost to Brock Lesnar at Mania, and Kurt Angle came back and he was like, Brock Lesnar kept checking on me after I broke my neck, where the fuck he broke. He kept seeing me in the hospital. He kept coming to visit me. Whereas Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas didn't give a fuck, right? And then, like, they turn their back on Kurt Angle and he beats the shit out of them. It becomes face, leading up to Lesnar's heel turn. So that makes sense, but Kurt Angle had to explain why he's back as a face and he's friends with Brock. And now they have, like, a friendly rivalry, you know what I mean? He has to explain. He's like, oh, Brock was there for me. Otherwise, who cares, right? But anyways, Sasha Banks wasn't there. Carmella comes out. People are booing her. Turns out that was the intended, reaction people were going for. Becky Lynch comes out to a huge pop. I would say it was bigger than the CM Punk pop. The only difference is that the CM Punk pop was 10,000 people in a smaller indoor arena, and this was 50,000 in a big arena. So Becky Lynch comes back. Luckily, she just destroys Carmella real fast and says, like, why don't me and you, to Bianca Belair, tear the roof off this motherfucker, basically, right? So you're thinking, based on what you said, that you're going to have, like, at least, I knew it was going to be a long match, but I expected, like, a 5-minute match where eventually Becky Lynch comes out on top, obviously, right? So, like, I've been saying it for a long time now. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks are the same fucking thing. Like, Bianca Belair and Bayley are the same thing. Like, they're transitory champions. Nobody cares about either of them. You know what I mean? And that's the problem, motherfuckers. Nobody gives a shit about Bianca Belair. People pretend it's like this big thing. Oh, she won the Rumble and she's the future. No, she's not. No, she's not, motherfuckers. In a few years, she'll be Carmella. She'll be on the same level as Carmella is. Or like Tamina, or Natalia, or all of them. Like, the women's division has like 1 or 2 stars. And the 2 stars are Becky and Charlotte. That's it. Everyone else is, even Asuka is irrelevant. You know? So that's what I gotta say about that. Rhea Ripley, same shit. Rhea Ripley is just the next Shayna Baszler. She'll have like a moment, and then eventually she'll be tag teaming with someone into obscurity. So to further solidify the point that I just made, they decided to have Becky Lynch hit the rock bottom. They called it the manhandle slam, but that's an entirely different move. Michael Cole doesn't know what he's talking about. She hits the rock bottom on Bianca Belair. Basically, she like sucker punches her, hits the rock bottom, beats her in like 20 seconds. Right? That was the end of that. Bianca Belair leaves the ring and she's like half crying, but half giving props to Becky Lynch, which I thought was really weak. Because it's like, dude, you just got humiliated in front of 50,000 people. The company thinks fucking nothing of you, basically. Like, you're just a female Kofi Kingston. When the real star comes in, you lose the title in 10 seconds. We don't have time. The star doesn't have time to put Bianca Belair over. Becky Lynch doesn't care if Bianca Belair comes out looking strong or weak at the end of this. She doesn't give a fuck. You know, just like Brock Lesnar doesn't give a shit how Kofi Kingston looks, because Brock Lesnar could kill Kofi Kingston in real life, and we believe that. However, in this case, Bianca Belair would probably beat the shit out of Becky Lynch in 10 seconds. So that's that, motherfucks. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Nobody really gives a shit about the SmackDown Women's title or the Raw Women's title. But Becky Lynch is back on top, and Bianca Belair has been completely cucked. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they should just fire Bianca Belair because she's not bringing anything to the table anymore now that she got jobbed out the way she did. Next up, we have Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. The whole story of this match was Jinder Mahal has no chance. And like the story, the match went the exact same way. Eventually, Drew McIntyre starts beating the shit out of him, hits the Future Shock, hits the Claymore, 1, 2, 3, that's that. Nothing special there. Feels like a Raw match. I don't even know why this wasn't on the pre-show. I guess because Drew McIntyre is a big deal. Then we have Charlotte versus Nikki Ass and versus Rhea Ripley, right? Obviously, Charlotte Flair wins, further proving my point. Nikki Ass and then Rhea Ripley are jobbers. They're never going to be the big stars that Charlotte's going to be. Charlotte's working her way up to 16 titles to make that like a WrestleMania moment at probably like not this WrestleMania, but the next one or the one after that, right? Charlotte Flair's title reigns no longer have any impact. They have no gravitas, motherfucks. It doesn't matter if she's champion or not because she's always champion. You know, you expect her to win every kind of match she's in that involves the title. So like Charlotte Flair is going to go down as the best women's wrestler of all time, at least until the next Charlotte Flair appears, which will probably never happen, let's be honest. You know, they're going to treat her 16 titles the same way they treated Ric Flair's. She's probably going to surpass it. She's probably going to get 17 just to say she's better than her dad because that's how WWE goes nowadays. So the match wasn't anything special. It felt like a Raw match. Nobody cared. But notice what I'm saying here, motherfuckers. All these matches that are like I said, SummerSlam was amazing, but all these matches are irrelevant. The only matches that matter are the last 3 matches as well as Becky Lynch's return, which is impactful for other reasons. So, next up, we have Edge versus Seth Rollins in what was one of the best matches I've ever seen. No exaggeration. This match was fucking fantastic. Seth Rollins is one of the best wrestlers alive. He has problems with his gimmick and the fact that he's not very charismatic, but this guy can go. All right? My girlfriend and I were watching this together, and she said it's one of the best matches she's ever seen. Now, she hasn't seen it that many, but she really enjoyed it. And the reason she enjoyed it was because she said that these guys are tireless. Like, they just keep going. Especially considering that Edge is like a guy who hasn't wrestled in years up until his return, which just makes it even more impressive. But Edge came out to the Brood theme song before he switched over to like his normal theme song. They beat the shit out of each other. The story of the match was Seth Rollins is targeting Edge's neck, right? To like destroy him basically. Whereas Edge is trying to beat the shit out of Seth Rollins. So the match ends after a series of attacks from Seth Rollins to Edge's neck, right? Seth Rollins kicks out of a spear. Edge does the Edge-o-matic. He does the execution. He does the educator even. He's doing all his moves, right? And Seth Rollins is kicking out of him. He has an answer to all of these moves, basically, right? Eventually, Edge grabs Seth Rollins' head. He puts him in a crossface, but eventually grabs his head and slams it on the ground, like on the mat, like 10, 15 times, right? And then puts him in a sleeper hold. This was the perfect finish for a match like this. Edge does not use the sleeper hold as a finisher, but the way that the match was presented was that Edge had to go to a place of anger and hate and, you know, savagery. And the sleeper hold is a savage move in real life. But beyond that, the slams of Seth Rollins' face into the mat, which he sold like kind of shitty, but whatever, really got that point across where it's like Edge is no longer fucking around. He wants to hurt you, and like, he understands the story, the psychology of it, if you will, was basically like Edge understands that he has to just destroy Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins isn't going to go down to like a gimmicky move. So he slams his head a million times, puts a sleeper hold on him. Seth Rollins taps out. Great match. fantastic. One of the best Edge matches of all time. I put it, honestly, personally, I put it right there. Like, Edge, like, 2 of his best matches, in my opinion, are this one and the Rey and Orton one at the greatest match ever, whatever it was, right? And then, of course, the one against Undertaker at WrestleMania was fucking amazing, right? And then we have the TLCs and all that other shit. But this is definitely like a top 10 or probably top 5 Edge match ever, right? At one point, Edge also hit the Glam Slam, which I thought was a nice touch. Next up, we had Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley, right? Goldberg starts off dominating Lashley. He's doing things he doesn't typically do anymore, like scoop slams. He did the world's strongest slam, kind of. It was more like a fall forward slam. He did his shit. He spears Lashley on the outside. He gets in the ring. MVP takes his cane, hits Goldberg right in the back of the knee, right? Lashley then charges, does like a few chop blocks, destroys Goldberg's knee, basically. The referee has to call the match as a result. Now, with that being said, Lashley, he stated that he was going to destroy, basically, Goldberg, right? So he goes after him and starts beating the shit out of Goldberg with a chair. At this point, I'm hoping and praying that the answer to this equation is Brock Lesnar comes and saves Goldberg. Even though they're longtime foes, Brock Lesnar is still Brock Lesnar, and I was hoping that he would come and save Goldberg from Lashley, setting up the real dream match that we all want to see. Lashley versus Lesnar. That's the match to make, motherfuckers. That's the match to make. But no, instead of fucking Lesnar, we get Goldberg's son, Gage, motherfuckers. Gage comes to save the day. Gage tries to attack Lashley. Lashley justifiably puts him in the hurt lock, right? I mean, I understand he's destroying his dad, but Gage attacked him. So Lashley's like justified and not destroying Gage, and he didn't destroy him. He put him in the hurt lock for a little bit, right? Then MVP's like, stop. They run away. MVP's like, Lashley had no idea who he was attacking. Like, that could have been anybody, which honestly is a pretty compelling point. It's like Gage attacking from behind. He doesn't know if it's Gage or maybe it's, I don't know, motherfucks. Maybe it's Stu Grayson from AW. Who the fuck knows? So Goldberg destroys Gage. He retains. So what's going to happen, obviously, is this feud's going to continue, which I'm cool with. You know, like, I like Goldberg. And I enjoyed what Goldberg was doing. And the match didn't have, like, a real conclusion. Like, Goldberg wasn't pinned. You know what I mean? Like, they cheated to hurt him, basically. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens with that. I would have liked my Lesnar booking better, but whatever, right? And then it's time for the main event. The main event was awesome for one reason and one reason only, and we'll get to that. The match itself wasn't great. I'm not going to lie. The match, I did not enjoy it at all. First of all, Roman Reigns, even though he's been champion for like a year, Roman Reigns has had to cheat in all of his matches, basically, right? He has to cheat against like Daniel Bryan. He has to cheat like against Daniel Bryan and Edge. He has to cheat against everybody. Like, when was the last time other than last night, when was the last time Roman Reigns won a match clean? You know, he's either cheating or showing up late or doing these heel things, right? But for some reason, nobody mentions these things. They just mention how dominant he's been. How is that dominant? Cheating is not dominant. Dominant is like John Cena's title reign, where he's beating everyone clean, right? But anyways, the story of the match here was basically Cena has no chance and knows it. I don't know why this was the story of the match. Because the story of the match was John Cena's trying to just get a quick roll-up. His entire point was, I need 3 seconds to beat you, Roman. And basically, I have no other way to beat you, was what John Cena was saying. And it turns out he was right. Because Cena hits like a million AAs. He hits a top rope or a middle rope AA. Roman Reigns kicks out. Roman eventually hits 2 Superman punches, a spear, and that's it for Cena. I was hoping Cena would kick out and take one more spear. But nonetheless, Cena and Roman Reigns was not good because Cena was not presented as Cena. He was presented as if it's like fucking... Remember when Shelton Benjamin had a feud with Triple H for like 2 weeks? And he like pinned Triple H with roll-ups? It was presented like that. Like the gap between Roman Reigns and Cena was presented as if it was like Roman Reigns versus Lince Dorado. And it's not, motherfucks. Cena was wrestling as if he was Lince Dorado. He was wrestling to get a roll-up. No, motherfucks. Cena should be out there doing power moves on Roman Reigns and basically being like, yo, I'm not ready to like stop wrestling, motherfucker. Right? Obviously, it was clear that Cena was going to lose just based on the logic behind it, right? Like Roman Reigns said that if he loses, he's leaving WWE. We all know that's not happening. Likewise, we all know Cena's not going to stick around and show up on SmackDown every week, right? Cena's shirt referenced the fact that he's a 16-time champion. They would not make that shirt obsolete immediately afterwards, right? So it's like you can't release a shirt that says he's a 16-time champion and then that same day make him a 17-time champion. That makes no sense. So it was clear that Cena was going to lose. But nonetheless, the best part, of course, was the end. Brock Lesnar apparently was there all along, motherfucks. Instead of having Brock Lesnar go and fight Lashley and maybe be like champion in Raw for a little bit and then have his feud with Roman Reigns at Night of Champions, which would make the most sense, right, when they're both champions. That's like a big match right there, right? Instead, they're focusing it on the other way around, right? Roman Reigns is going to go after, Lesnar's going to go after Reigns, have that feud now, but hopefully he wins, because then we might be able to see Lashley versus Brock Lesnar at whatever the fuck it's called. You know what I mean? At Night of Champions. That's the real match here, you know? It would have been better to do it my way personally, just because like of the Paul Heyman situation. But now the story is going to be interesting nonetheless, because the question is, who is Paul Heyman going to go with, number one? Hopefully he just goes with Lesnar. That makes the most sense. Also, it's the better fit, right? Like, he's been Lesnar's manager forever, and like he's only Roman Reigns' manager to pretty much put over Roman Reigns as the next Lesnar. That's the whole point, right? The whole point is like Paul Heyman's going after guys that are like big time winners, you know. But there's no big time winner that's bigger and more of a winner than Brock Lesnar, motherfucks. As Pat McAfee very well put it, he said, "Here's Brock Lesnar, the alpha male of our species, motherfucks. Brock Lesnar is another level. I don't care what anyone says. Don't give a shit, motherfucks. No human could beat up prime Brock Lesnar, ever. I don't give a shit what you think. Oh, Cain Velasquez beat him. Shut the fuck up. If Brock Lesnar was healthy and younger, if he was the same age as Cain Velasquez, he would beat the shit out of Cain Velasquez. It would be a no contest. Same thing with Ngannou and all these other jabrones. Brock Lesnar is the GOAT. He is one of the best MMA fighters of all time, motherfuckers. You want to know why? Because he took it up as a hobby and became world champion. So Brock Lesnar came out looking swole as usual. His head was a little bit weird because his haircut and his beard made his head look bigger. But, you know, Brock Lesnar's Brock Lesnar, right? Roman Reigns eventually left. He showed some signs of being afraid, as one should be when they step up to Lesnar, or in this case, when Lesnar steps up to them. But that's neither here nor there. The important point here is not just that Brock Lesnar came back, because we knew that eventually he would come back. Point is, he came back as a face, motherfucks. Face Brock Lesnar is a big draw. It's as simple as that. Face Brock Lesnar, I used to hate him when I was a kid because I was more of a Kurt Angle guy, right? I always wanted Kurt Angle to win in their feud. But face Brock Lesnar, and if there's anyone that could beat up prime Brock Lesnar, it would be prime Kurt Angle, or like prime Mike Tyson would have a pretty good shot. You know what I'm saying? That's it. None of these MMA guys would have any chance. So anyways, the facts are what the facts are. This is a big money match, but I would have loved to see it go the other way around. So overall, considering the match quality of the good matches, like I thought the Goldberg match was pretty good. The Cena match as a match wasn't bad. As a storytelling device, as a storytelling medium, it was shit. But the match was good. And the Edge and Seth Rollins match is easily, in my opinion, the best match we've had thus far this year. I don't know, when did Orton and Edge have their match? That must have been last year, right? Must have been. Their match, like the world's greatest match, whatever the fuck it was called. That match was right up there, but this match with Seth Rollins might even be a bit better. This is one of the best matches ever. It didn't go on too long. So for that reason and that reason alone, WWE kicks ass at SummerSlam, right? And of course, the return of Becky Lynch, even though I don't give a rat's ass myself, I know that she's a big draw, so that's a big deal, motherfuckers. It's a big deal to see that and have her become champion. The fact that other titles changed hands made it memorable. Irrelevant title changes, but memorable nonetheless. And of course, Brock Lesnar coming back is huge news for everyone involved. Brock Lesnar is a bad motherfucker, and him coming back makes everyone happy, or it should at least. So I give the SummerSlam a solid 8 out of 10, motherfuckers. One of the first pay-per-views in a long time to feel like a pay-per-view. All because of the combination of factors, right? Roman Reigns being pushed the way he has been, right? And therefore seeming like a legitimate challenge to Cena. Cena coming back, Lesnar coming back, Becky Lynch coming back, Goldberg coming back. It speaks for itself. So with that being said, motherfuckers, great pay-per-view. I look forward to what happens tomorrow on Monday Night Raw. I'm going to watch NXT, I guess, but I couldn't give a shit about what happens in NXT. So that being said, motherfuckers, take care of yourself.